As part of We the People, celebrating 250 years, here's this day in history.
As we count down to America's 250th birthday this summer, we're sharing our We the People series, the people, places, and things of the past that have shaped our country into what it is today.
Hello again. On this day, January 24th in 1935, the first canned beer went on sale in Richmond, Virginia. The company that first made the leap to cans was the Gottfried Kruger Brewing Company, which partnered with the American Can Company. Together, they delivered 2,000 cans of Kruger's finest beer and cream ale to the people in Richmond. The American Can Company had the idea of canning beer decades earlier, first trying it in 1909. After a failed attempt, Prohibition caused the company to have to put their experiment on hold until the 1930s. Once Kruger's launched their canned beer, the public was on board, with over 90% of customers who tried the product approving of it. Cans made the beer easier to distribute, which allowed Kruger's to gain market share against popular national brewers like Pabst and Schlitz, both based in Wisconsin. The product's popularity grew even more during World War II, and eventually most brewers started to can their beer. Today, canned beer makes up more than 60% of the beer industry. That's this day in history for January 24th. For We the People, I'm Charlie Shortino.